A quarterfinal, 25 minutes in. The scoreboard reads 3-0, and it's all against the team wearing white. The crowd is roaring the way crowds roar when they've already written the ending, when they believe they're watching a coronation. But on the pitch at Goodison Park, something is about to happen that no one in that stadium has prepared for. This is football untold. This is the story of Eusébio 1966, the Black Panther of Wembley. He was born in Lourenço Marques on January 25, 1942, in a city that no longer exists under that name. Mozambique was a Portuguese colony then, and his father was a railway worker. When Eusébio was 8 years old, his father died of tetanus. He grew up barefoot. The balls he played with were rags stuffed and tied. There was no academy, no pathway, no scouts with clipboards. There was just a boy in the dust, practicing against walls because walls don't leave you. By the time he was a teenager, Sporting CP had spotted him through their Mozambique affiliate. They wanted him badly, but Benfica wanted him more. What happened next entered Portuguese football legend as the stuff of spy novels. In 1960, when Eusébio was 16, Benfica spirited him away across the Atlantic. They hid him in a fisherman's village in the Algarve while the two clubs fought over his registration. For days, the future king of European football lived in hiding, unknown even to his own country. When the paperwork finally settled in Benfica's favor, he emerged not from a home, but from obscurity. By 1962, at 20 years old, he had won the European Cup with Benfica. He scored twice in the final against Real Madrid. After the match, Alfredo Di Stefano, the greatest footballer alive, gave him his shirt. That single gesture meant everything. The torch passed. The following year, in 1965, Eusébio won the Ballon d'Or. He had become, at 23, one of the 5 best footballers in the world. He had done it in 6 years. He had done it on the back of rags and hunger and a fisherman's village where no one knew his name. Then came England 1966, and with it, something Portugal had never had before, their first ever World Cup. Eusébio scored against Hungary. He scored against Bulgaria. Then came Brazil, the defending champions, the team that had won Sweden 1958, Chile 1962, the most feared attacking side in world football. Pelé had arrived at this tournament as the greatest player alive. Brazil had come to England as the favourites. But on July 13, 1966, at Old Trafford, the match descended into something between football and violence. The Portuguese kicked brutally, the Brazilians kicked back. In the chaos of it, Eusébio found space. He scored twice. Brazil, the holders, were eliminated. The greatest player in the world, Pelé, had his tournament ended. A man from a fisherman's village with rags for childhood had done it. Goodison Park, July 23, 1966. Portugal versus North Korea. North Korea, the miracle team of the tournament, the team no one had expected to win a single match, the team that had knocked out Italy. The crowd expected Portugal to be businesslike, efficient. It was instead a dissolution. 3-0, the match was halfway dead. The crowd, who had come to watch a coronation, was instead watching a burial. Portugal's first World Cup, and it was ending in humiliation in front of 2,000 kilometers of empty sea. The first goal came in the 27th minute. 2 minutes later, because sometimes 2 minutes is all the time a man needs to rewrite a story, the second goal from a penalty. Eusébio had scored twice now, 3-2. The momentum had turned like a door swinging on new hinges. The North Korean players could feel it. The Portuguese players could feel it. The crowd, which had gone silent, began to remember how to breathe. In the 56th minute, Eusébio scored again, 3-3. The match was tied. Goodison Park had become a place of resurrection. A man was playing 4 people at once, and he was winning. In the 59th minute, another penalty. His 4th goal, 59 minutes played, and Eusébio had scored 4 times. He had alone dismantled the greatest surprise team in World Cup history. No player had ever done this before in a quarterfinal. No player has done it since. He set up the 5th goal for his teammate. Portugal won 5-3. The North Koreans had played the match of their lives and lost. Eusébio had played a match beyond life and won. The semi-final came 4 days later, on July 27, and it was at Wembley, England's home, England's advantage, the place where the hosts were expected to hoist the trophy. Portugal came as the romantic story, the team that had no business being here, the team with the man who had torn apart Italy's defenders and Brazil's champions and North Korea's miracle. England's manager, Alf Ramsey, had one tactical answer to Eusébio, Nobby Styles. Styles was not the most talented footballer on the pitch. He was the most dedicated. For 90 minutes, Styles followed Eusébio in the way a shadow follows the sun, not directly, but always there, always present, always marking, always closing, always making the space smaller. It was a masterclass in defensive concentration. Eusébio, who had been orchestrating symphonies, found himself playing in a telephone booth. Bobby Charlton scored twice. England won the semi-final 2-1. Eusébio scored a penalty late in the match, a consolation, a reminder that he was still there, still capable, but it wasn't enough. The story was over. Portugal would not reach the final. Eusébio walked off the Wembley pitch in tears, not in anger, in the kind of exhaustion that comes from giving everything and finding it wasn't enough. He had played the greatest World Cup any player from his country had ever played. He had scored 9 goals in the tournament. He had won the Golden Boot. He had done things that had never been done. And now, walking off Wembley in the summer of 1966, he was crying because the story was ending the way stories end when they end before they're supposed to. The English crowd applauded him. They stood and applauded a man from their opposing team because they understood what they had just seen. They understood that they had witnessed something that would outlive that afternoon, that would outlive all of them. The man in tears walking off their pitch would become more beloved in their memory than many of their own players. That single image, Eusébio, walking in tears, applauded by 70,000 English voices, became the photograph that survived. It became the story's last scene. Portugal finished third in the tournament, their best World Cup finish in 40 years. But that's a statistic. The real story is what happened to the man who made it possible. He returned to Benfica and continued to play. He continued to score. In his career, competing across 745 official matches, he scored 733 goals, 11 Portuguese titles, countless European nights when he was the best thing on the pitch. He played with a style that seemed to come from somewhere else, from the rags and the dust and the fisherman's village and the shame of being hidden because no one could decide who owned him. He played like a man who knew what it was to have nothing and was determined never to deserve to go back. On January 7, 2014, at the age of 71, Eusébio da Silva Ferreira died in Lisbon. Portugal declared 3 days of national mourning. His funeral was attended by 50,000 people. He had become a monument to what one man from a colony could do if he believed hunger enough. Today, if you go to Estádio da Luz in Lisbon, you'll see a statue of him outside. It shows him mid-stride, ball at his feet, moving forward. Cristiano Ronaldo, who became the greatest footballer Portugal has ever produced, called him the king. Ronaldo meant it as history. Ronaldo meant it as inheritance. The lineage was unbroken. From the barefoot boy with rags to the man who made Di Stefano give him his shirt to the man who made Wembley applaud in tears. That's how greatness passes in football, not through trophies, through witness, through the memory of what it looked like when a human being decided that 3-0 was not how the story would end. If stories like this are why you love football, subscribe. The next untold story finds you tomorrow. The statue outside the stadium in Lisbon shows him mid-stride. It could just as honestly show him in tears, because both are true, both are him, the man who made the impossible ordinary for 90 minutes and then walked off a pitch knowing the ordinary had claimed him back. Some stories end at full time. This one never did.